Hello. How's everyone doing this fine, beautiful day? It's like, not only is this virus thing crazy, then the weather, I mean, I know I probably say this every year, it's like, we're in mid-April, there's snow laying on the ground yesterday. And then today, I don't know what the temperature out. You couldn't tell it snowed yesterday. It's like a beautiful spring day. So I'm in high spirits. So yeah, just a quick roadside video. I'm gonna try to maybe do some videos today. We'll see. Work schedule's brutal. So in addition, one of the things you have to understand with home health care, our fiscal year ends in June. And so you have vacation time and saved up. You have to have it used by June. Because of this situation, a lot of us who work in my house, we're dedicated and we haven't been taking time off. We're now getting to the time where we have to start taking time off because we're all going to have to use this time by the end of June. And we've been working so much that we haven't used our vacation time, which means if one of us takes time off, then the other one's working even crazier hours. So that's what's been going on with my life. But I'm happy to do it. The people I take care of with disabilities, they're some of the greatest people you'll ever meet. It's a really trying time for them too, as I've talked about. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain to a person, just an everyday person, why are we shutting down, asking no questions, giving the government this power to take our rights away, etc. It's hard enough to explain that, let alone to someone that's just like has no concept of what do you mean that there's a virus out there. So, it's tough. Don't feel bad for me. But understand there's a lot of people that routine's important to them, relationships are important, and they're losing that in their life, and their mental health suffering as a result of that. So it's a trying time for everyone. But anyways, yeah, what I wanted to talk about real quick on my way home here is that the numbers are coming out. There's on Zero Hedge, one of their top articles right now, it goes through about 7 different examples of why the numbers are showing that basically COVID's fatality rate is 22 to 55 times less than what we were initially told. What does this mean? I've been telling you for over a month now that there's 2 types of possible viruses this could be. It could be one with a relatively low infection rate, but a high mortality rate, which is why it was killing so many people. Or it could be one with a relatively low mortality rate, but a high infection rate. And the way you fight those viruses are completely opposite. The one with the really high fatality rate, then yes, it makes down to try to shut down, but only if you shut down before it spreads. But that's how you fight something like Ebola or something like that. The way you fight something like the flu, which is what this virus is like, which affects a lot of people every year, basically becomes commonplace, and it takes advantage of people with compromised immune systems, elderly people, people with diabetes, asthma. Me, by the way, that's who I'm referring to. The way you deal with that is you try to isolate vulnerable populations, but you basically let people go back to work and you let the country operate as it normally would. That's what we do every year with the flu. That's what we've done historically with these type of high infection, low mortality rate viruses. We were lied to this time. Remember, my initial stance was I wasn't even saying, when I was criticizing the government's actions, I wasn't even criticizing the fact that they were taking these actions. I said I could see a virus where these sorts of draconian authoritarian actions would be necessary. However, I would only accept it if there was total transparency from the government and they were answering basic questions. Where did you get your numbers from? What was your threshold for taking this? Where does your proof that taking away these rights and collapsing the economy will save lives, etc.? They didn't give us any of that. At the federal, at the state, and at most local levels, they didn't give us that information. So not only was I right to question that as the numbers are bearing out, but it turns out the reason they didn't give us the numbers was because they're just pulling them out of their butt. And they have no clue. And now we're starting to see study after study. We see in Italy, Spain, Germany, Santa Clara. We see in the new LA County study. Yep, every single one. Every time now that they've started randomly testing people, it turns out that there are tons of people, huge percentage of people that had antibodies to the virus. In other words, they had the virus that were asymptomatic, that never showed symptoms, which means the mortality rate's way lower than we anticipate. It basically means 2 things. One, the mortality rate's basically the equivalent of a bad flu year. That's what the numbers are showing right now. And second, it's showing that it already spread far enough that containment measures won't be successful. That's what we're looking at. And so with that twofold thing, the lockdown never made any sense, and it continues to not make sense. Now, you see all of a sudden Trump coming out and saying like, oh, he's questioning. Good. It's not too late to make the right call. We should be opening the country. Of course, you have these rubes. Oh, so now you're against state rights, Rob? No. But the rights outlined to us in the Bill of Rights aren't to be allowed to be taken away by the states. For example, the First Amendment says we have the right to practice whatever religion we want, as long as it's peaceful, right? That doesn't mean that in Pennsylvania, my governor, Tom Wolf, can say, I don't like Christianity, we're going to ban Christianity. You can't do that because you're guaranteed the right to practice religion, freedom of religion, under the First Amendment. So it's not a states' rights issue if you're talking about the states' rights or the states taking away your constitutionally guaranteed rights. Second, it's fun now to see a bunch of the same Trump supporters that questioned me, that said I wanted to see people die. Now all of a sudden when Trump asks the same questions I've been asking all along, oh yeah, now it's prudent to ask those questions. Trump's right to want to open up the country. Okay, yeah, he is. He was wrong to want it shut down in the first place, which he did. When he talked to Newsom, when he talked to Cuomo, and he agreed with their decisions and said people should comply with them, that's what he was doing. But yes, hopefully he does have a change of heart. He should. It's already too late for them. Tens of thousands of people have lost their livelihood. But the damage will be worse the longer the shutdown continues. But notice how many people, I did the last road video I did here, we were talking about the Stanford study, which looked at Santa Clara and said that basically 55 to 85 times as many people were infected as previously thought in Santa Clara. And all of a sudden you saw people coming out of the woodwork. Oh, we have to question this. We have to question these numbers. We can't just blindly accept a group of experts. You can't do that. Yes, that was my argument from the get-go. And the same people now questioning the study of experts that goes against their narrative, they told me, oh, no, you can't question the experts. Yeah, you have to accept the experts, and you have to accept the government taking away any of your rights, and you have to give the government trillions of dollars in blank checks, and you have to accept that millions upon billions of those dollars are going to go to museums and universities and all this spending that's worthless, because we can't disagree with the experts. Now we know those experts' models were wrong every single time, and we have another group of experts that are the first ones doing randomized testing. Could these experts be wrong? Possibly. It is. They are right to want to question these experts' study. But isn't it funny how all of a sudden they're on Team Rob? Oh yeah, we shouldn't just blindly accept someone because they call themselves an expert. Huh? Isn't that interesting? So when it goes against the authoritarian government, take away your rights, spend trillions of dollars, all of a sudden that evidence needs to be questioned. But any evidence that speaks to just give up your rights, shut up, give trillions of dollars to the government to spend, we can't question that evidence. Can't question that. So now, in addition, we have the LA County study came out. And it's funny how it's being spun in news articles. Oh, up to 50 times more people may have had the virus than previously thought. This shows that we need to continue the lockdown. The lockdown's been effective, but we need to continue it. That's one way of saying it. Or another way of saying it is they were wrong again, the experts. And the media and all of the experts hyped up this mortality rate that ended up being 25 to 50 times lower than what they claimed. That's another way of putting it. Another way of putting it is the mortality rate, if these studies are correct, the Santa Clara and the LA County studies, if they're correct, then it turns out the mortality rate's basically that of a bad flu season. Team Rob, I know, maybe I'm watching too much Twilight recently. I'm just kidding, I've only ever seen one Twilight movie. And it was under protest. But yeah, I mean, so now we have more studies coming out. Could these studies be wrong? They could be. But remember, one of the things that people were telling you from the get-go was the people that were being tested, it looked like the mortality rate was going to be higher because the only people getting tested were people that were showing severe symptoms. So they were going to the hospital and getting tested. Of course, disproportionately more of them are not only going to die and have serious consequences, but actually have the virus. Whereas if you look out at all the people that, just thought they had a cold or the regular flu, or they didn't show symptoms of all that could have had it, it shows that the mortality rate's way lower. Imagine that you only looked at the mortality rate of the people that have the flu, of the ones that needed to be hospitalized for. So instead of the millions upon millions of Americans that get the flu every year, you just looked at the few 100,000 or so that went to ICUs. then yes, the mortality rate of the flu is going to look horrific. Yeah, and then you're right there, tactical technician. Right? That's just the denominator. How many people have, that's how you discover the mortality. How many have had the virus? So we can now see that number, study after study, showing with random testing. Every random testing study I've seen. Could they be wrong? They could be. We should question them. But every single one of the random testing showed far more people had the virus than we initially thought, which means the lockdown's ineffectual and it didn't really do anything, and that it was unnecessary in the first place because the mortality rate was basically equivalent to a bad flu. And as far as the numerator, how many people have died of COVID, we know it's just, we're a hospital, we like that sweet, sweet COVID trillions. So we're going to say anyone dies and showed any cough whatsoever or anything must have died of COVID. That's what's going on. Always lose people at the tire shop there. Anyways, yeah, I welcome the skepticism of any of these studies, of any experts. But again, it's funny how it changes. When it's their side, when it's the government bootlickers, when it's the people saying, it's just a piece of paper, it's just your rights, you can't be concerned about, it's just the economy. You're more concerned about your 401k than people dying. When people are making that argument, it's, oh, you can't question anything. But then all of a sudden when it's like, well, geez, maybe this was a huge overreaction, all of a sudden, oh, no, we have to question those experts. We have to question those studies. So it was just Stanford. Now it's Italy, Germany, Spain, LA County. Does that prove that those studies are all correct? No, I'm not saying that. But certainly our default of what we're being told is, the default is, we have to shut everything down and suspend the Bill of Rights. Lock up the guy trying to have a wedding. Handcuff the mom pushing her kid on a swing in the park. Shut everything down because we don't know. And if you watched my radio interview, which I'm going to get that up today, I got the link to it, so I'll get that up my channel. That's one of the arguments I'm making there is, when did it become, because what they're admitting is, we don't know. We don't know the numbers. That's what the government experts are admitting. We don't know. So when did it become, we don't know, so our default position is, take away your rights and spend trillions of dollars. Again, you don't know that an asteroid's not going to hit next week. You don't know. You could say, but wait, we haven't heard this from other people, and, I have a telescope, I didn't see anything, or whatever. But you don't know. You're not 100% proven, so send me all your money. I mean, that's ridiculous. You would say, no, of course not. It's up to you to prove that this taking away of rights and this destruction of the economy is warranted. And they never proved it. And not only that, the garbage that they suggested without giving us the rationale for it, oh, well, millions will die and this and that's all been bogus. It turns out all those numbers were, what are they going to say at the end of the day? Oh, well, we never specifically said what the numbers were or what our threshold was. So we saved a lot of lives. The reason so few people died was we did it. We saved a lot of lives. And so we did the right thing. That's what they'll say. The only reason the numbers weren't as high as we originally anticipated was because we took away your rights and we destroyed the economy. That's it. That's what they're going to say. As I predicted. And we've set the condition for anytime the government now says, hey, you're in a lot of trouble, everybody's going to die, you can't question us, we have to take away your rights and shut down the economy. We just have to accept it. Again, I expect this from the Bernie contingent, the socialists. You expect this from the big government establishment Democrats, the Biden supporters. But when you saw so many Trump supporters get on this bandwagon, oh, yeah, we're all going to die. Locked down. We can see Sweden has less deaths per capita than the UK. The UK went on total lockdown. Sweden took the exact opposite approach. Now, are there differences between the country's healthcare systems, the populations? Of course. It's not an apples-to-apples comparison. But we were told, remember what we were told by the, what's it called? I always forget it. But, basically the original studies, that said that 2.2 million Americans would die. Over 500,000 people in the UK would die. They said those numbers will die. But if you do our policies, then only 20,000 people will die. Not, we could save half of those lives through our policies. It was, we could save almost everyone. 500,000 people die in the UK, but if you do what we suggest, only 20,000. The Imperial College study. That's what it said, right? So, the rationale for that would be, okay, well, if you don't do the lockdown, if some country would decide not to do the lockdown, it will have a factor of people like 10 times, 50 times, somewhere in that range of people will die per capita in that country than one that had the lockdown. How come that's not what we're seeing? Why are we seeing more per capita die in the UK? You see what I mean? I could have these arguments with people and someone could say, but here's the nuances between the UK's healthcare system and Sweden's healthcare system. I get it, and those nuances do exist, and I'm not claiming to be an expert on either. But that argument only makes sense in a world where you were saying 500,000 people will die in the UK, but if you do these lockdowns, then only 100,000 people will die. So 5 times less people will die. Then I could understand the argument, well, the reason we can't compare Sweden that didn't have a lockdown and why their per capita numbers are still lower than the UK's, the reason we can't compare them is because, the healthcare systems are a little different. But it wasn't just 5 times as many. What is it? 20,000 to 500,000. So what? 25 times less deaths. If your argument in the UK was 25 times less people will die if you have the lockdown, and then we go to another European country that didn't do the lockdown, you would expect the amount of deaths per capita to be around 20 to 25 times higher than that in the UK. Instead, it's less. How do we explain that? And yes, I get it, the government shields will say, oh, but the things are a little different, it's different here, and the number's still bad in Sweden, and blah, 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 blah. It's nowhere near as bad as we would have led to believe based on the models that initially got us into this crap in the first place. And this is why no one wanted to give those numbers, as I said. This is why the government was going to withhold. This is exactly what our models are. This is exactly how we came to these conclusions on these models. Here's how we've tested them with people that might disagree. Here's our threshold for when we should shut down rights, when we should shut down the economy. One of the reasons they didn't want to do that was, one, many of them are corrupt and they want to exploit this. And second, they didn't want to give hard numbers because then it would allow people to say, hey, you were wrong. You took our rights for no reason. So instead they leave it as vague as possible, just like with the Patriot Act. And they'll say, oh, no matter whatever happens, if 1,000 people die or if 10 million people die, we did the right thing. And so the next time we say we need to take away your rights and stop the economy, we're right. It's ridiculous. That's what we're seeing here. And so, I don't know. Well, right now it looks like the numbers are proving me correct. I'm correct no matter what, because I never said, my gut feeling was, this isn't near as bad as what they're saying. But even if it was as bad as what they were saying, my main point was, I cannot accept the government taking away our rights without answering basic questions. Such as, what are their models? What is the threshold for when they can take these actions? What are the costs going to be? How many people will die as a result of shutting down the economy and taking away our rights? How long will that be necessary? How many lives will be saved from that shutdown, etc.? Instead of answering those questions, we've been given nothing but mixed messages. I mean, me at the state level with Governor Wolf, I'm told that now I have to wear a mask anywhere I am in public. This is after the CDC, the premier agency in this country for fighting disease, told me masks don't work. So the CDC says, don't bother getting masks. They don't help you whatsoever. Then a month later, the governor of Pennsylvania says it is illegal for me to be in any of the businesses that are currently open, such as grocery stores, if I don't have a mask. So the experts were 100% wrong. They had the exact opposite conclusion of the truth. According to either Governor Wolf is forcing me to wear a mask, which does nothing, according to the CDC, or the CDC was wrong, and now they've had to revise their stance, and it turns out masks can help spread the disease, help stop spread the disease. How are we trusting the people that said the most, like this is unbelievable. Only an expert could be so dumb to say, oh, a mask wouldn't help stop the spread of a respiratory infection. Only an expert could be that dumb. Every guy on the street knew that was stupid. I have no medical experience. If we're talking about spreading germs that could come from your saliva or things like that, then yeah, a mask will help stop the spread. Seems pretty simple. Not according to the CDC. Nah, I breathe just fine, trust me. Shut that off, though. So now, the experts, they were totally wrong, but we have to listen to them. We have to listen to them. Trust them when they say take your rights away more. Trust Folky when he says, oh, I'm against opening up. You got to shut down for years. That we just have to do it. We have to trust the experts. What about these other experts that are coming out with studies that show actually it's more widespread than the original experts say? Oh, no, we can't trust those experts. We only implicitly and unquestionably trust our experts. Any experts that disagree must not be experts. Really, a lot of those experts said that the whole mask, the CDC was completely wrong. No, we're not going to focus on that. And so they never give their exact numbers. That way they can still be deemed the experts. And this isn't just in the field of epidemiology and virology. The same's true with foreign policy. We listen to the same foreign policy gurus tell us over and over and over and over. Oh, we got to go to war in this place. We got to go to war in this place. We got to do this, got to do that. And they're wrong every time. We listen to the political experts say, oh, someone like Trump can't win. Trump needs to stop talking to the American people. Trump needs to stop using Twitter. Trump needs to do this. Trump needs to do that. He doesn't have a chance. They were wrong. How are these experts wrong every time? Financial experts. Oh, we just need to spend. Remember Paul Krugman? Oh, if Trump gets elected, the stock market will collapse immediately. And it soars to record highs before this. Again, another expert. We keep being told, you just have to trust the experts. You can't question them. Even when they're saying obvious nonsense stuff. Like the experts in Pennsylvania that we're deciding on, they say that only essential businesses could be open. And if we open non-essential businesses, you understand this, that it's going to be apocalyptic, the amount of cases that we have. Meanwhile, the candy store's open down the road. The landscaping business is open. The tire shop's open. But you can't go to the factory that makes the houses in my town. How's that? What makes the candy store more essential than the mobile home factory? No one can explain it. Well, New Jersey's governor says liquor stores are essential, but churches aren't. You get arrested if you go to church, but you can go to the liquor store. He was on Tucker. He said, why? What right do you have to do that? How can you suspend the Bill of Rights? He said, that's above my pay grade. I wasn't thinking about the Bill of Rights. What are you talking about? Right, and I'm more with Shiva than I am with Dr. Foki right now. Foki wants that big vaccine money, doesn't he? Let me ask you this. Foki says that we'll have to keep social distancing measures until we see not one new case. That's what he said. Not one new case of the coronavirus, okay? So then the implication is, so we need a vaccine first. Let me ask you this. Is there a vaccine for the flu? There is, isn't there? How many people does the flu kill? About 60,000 Americans a year? Does that sound like not one new case of the flu? Of course not. So what are the chances that we get within, the next year, a vaccine with a 100% success rate? I would say slim to none. So what? We're going to be shut down for more than a year, according to Dr. Foki. And that's the expert we're trusting? They're either corrupt or they're incompetent. And either way, I don't care anymore. They shouldn't be being listened to. The numbers, we're now seeing studies that come out that are saying counter to what they were saying. More people have this virus than it seemed. Enough people that the lockdown is now ineffectual. Even in Pennsylvania, I talked about this in the radio show. The woman in charge, like the head medical lady in charge in Pennsylvania that's advising Governor Wolf, she admits, they said, what about these small towns that have had like 5 cases, counties that have had 5 cases of COVID? Why can't they open up? And she said, the virus is already there. We know it's there. Yet they're still using the mortality figures as if the virus isn't there. And if the virus is already here in my small town, okay, then what's the lockdown accomplished? Nothing. It's like the chicken pox. You hear all these stories. My one kid had chicken pox, so I just put all the other kids in the room with him and got them all. Once that kid goes to school with the chicken pox, all those kids in class have been exposed to it. It's too late then to be like, well, let's have a lockdown. That's what it's looking like happened with COVID. Yes, if they caught it with like the 0 patient and a couple people after that, maybe they could have had a lockdown. But they didn't, and now it's everywhere. Okay, just like the flu. Turns out, because it's way further spread than we thought, not only is the lockdown ineffectual and just causing pain for no reason, but it shows the mortality rate's not that bad. It's just like a bad case of the flu. It's probably going to be slightly worse than the flu. I'll concede that, but that's why the threshold argument was important. So what, something twice as bad as the flu? That's worth shutting down the country? I don't think so. The last thing I'll say is, I want you to remember, because I am running for Congress in 2022, and I will be running against a Republican. You ask yourself right now, your people that you've elected represented, I don't care at the state level, at the county level, at the federal level. I don't care if they're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, or some other party. What have they done? Have they been vocal against these lockdowns? Or did they go along with it? And now they'll become vocal once we took a poll Mr. Governor, or we took a poll, Mr. Congressman, and now it shows that the majority of your constituents are upset about the lockdown. Oh, okay, then I'm upset about the lockdown now. That's not leadership. So you should run, or you should have someone you know run, that from the default said, we are going to protect our rights and make sure that we have all these questions answered before we give them up and crash the economy. So I'm sure whoever I run against will say, oh, eventually I was against the lockdown. Yeah, where were you in the first place? Hold these people accountable. Just because they have the right letter next to their name doesn't mean they're governing as they should. I have seen almost no leadership from anyone at any level on this. Everyone's just virtue signaling, oh, I could support the lockdown more than the next. I could support social distancing more than the next person. I could do it. And it's garbage. So, all right, I might be doing some more stuff today. So, thanks for listening to me ramble on. I'm doing fine, believe it or not. So, my thoughts go out to everyone who's suffering economically under this. I hope everything works out for you. I might be doing a video later today. We'll see. But thanks so much, everyone. And as always, have a good one.